And I think Everett did a good job of sort of queuing this up to talk about how we handle what goes on in our lives. So what I think I'm going to do to make this move along a little bit, I'm going to hand off the microphone, and then when you're done, I'll ask you guys to just kind of pass it along so that we can get the panel and have time to spend a little time networking, but we do have to clear the building by 4 o'clock. So thank you all for hanging in with us, and I'm going to start with Sarah.
Thank you, Jackie. I would first like to say thank you to Jackie and to WoA for inviting us to speak. My name is Sarah Carver, and this is Jennifer Griffith, and we initially met back 20-some years ago, I believe, working at a law firm in Greenup, Kentucky, and as paralegals, and we ended up at the Social Security Administration, and it was the hearing office. There's district offices and there's hearing offices, and this is where we met, and this is where our adventure, if you want to call it that, began. I'm going to show you a slide. It's a short trailer, and it is not yet a trailer of the Big Con, and this was put out by Apple TV. It's a documentary. It's a 4-part series. There's also a podcast that you can look up that goes along with this that talks about things that weren't discussed in the documentary. And just like we were talking about, how this happened and how it evolved, we were contacted by the producers of this documentary, and they had previously did a documentary on the Monopoly. And I don't know if any of you all had seen that, but it was a scheme. It was with the Monopoly playing pieces in McDonald's. But I'll let you take a look at this trailer. It is they did add a little entertainment, but they didn't have to add a lot, because the character in this documentary, you will see, has enough issues.
This is one of the craziest
for entertainment purposes.
Who pulled off one of the biggest scams in American history.
We are looking for Eric Conn for defrauding the U.S. taxpayer of more than $550 million.
Eric Conn was one of the biggest lawyers here in Appalachia.
The town loved him and the people loved him. He was a phenomenon.
Eric Conn was Mr. Social Security.
He was on the radio. He was on television.
This is an advertisement for Eric C. Conn.
We laughed at him, but everybody wanted to meet him.
You couldn't miss him, especially when he went on the run.
The way he did it was incredible, and there was porn stars and voodoo dolls and Rolls Royces and flashy suits and brothels.
He opened a Halloween-themed brothel.
Nobody knows how many people he's been married to.
Everything about this guy is too much to believe, but it all happened.
At that time, I thought he was helping me. I hit rock bottom, lost everything I had.
My clients are victims of his criminal conduct.
This is one of the poorest parts of the United States, and he's getting filthy rich off the whole thing.
A ball in eastern Kentucky.
There was 3 investigations happening at once. Bad judges, bad lawyers, bad doctors.
My tires had been slashed with a knife.
These were bad, bad people.
I lived in fear of going to work.
The politics stink to high heaven.
Only thing government hates more than a rapist or a child molester is a tax evader.
We're like, freeze!
We walked across the border with a dog named Curly.
Through Mexico into Guatemala. We were that close. Now he's gone.
Eric was planning his biggest caper yet.
Next slide. So what you're looking at is a basic level overview of the Social Security disability process. And why that is important is that Sarah and I worked at the office that would handle step 3 here, which means that you've applied for Social Security disability benefits, you've been turned down twice, and you are requesting a hearing before an administrative law judge. And immediately upon working in this office, there were some red flags, but it tended to get worse over the next 4 years and became just overtly obvious. Next slide. So this is just going to be just like a quick video of how the fraud scheme occurred in our office. And it's essentially an attorney bribing doctors to issue medical opinions that were, let's just say, not necessarily accurate. And then those opinions would be used for the judge to then base a favorable disability decision on those. And then in turn, he would recoup fees. Now, you're going to see a lot of different numbers thrown around. You see it in the trailer. We'll talk about it a little bit more later. $550 million is a lowball estimate of the fraud here. It's more like $2.62 billion. But he at one point made $4 million in 1 year. Next slide.
When we started making disclosures, we first started within our office to our local managers. We started verbally, voicing our concerns about things that we had seen. We also, are we going to the next one? Okay. We also started a massive course of action. We started emailing. And when I say emailing, we probably sent over 1,000 emails in a period of time, and it just wasn't working. They were going to make us out to be troublemakers in the end, and we realized that we needed to go outside of the agency several years in when nothing was being done. So this is when we went to local media. We went to our congressman at the time, was Joe Manchin. And eventually we were put in touch with a Wall Street Journal reporter. And this is basically when it was out of our office and our whistleblowing took off.
Next slide. So for context, we started making disclosures in 2005, but it took us until 2011 to gain any real external interest. And the Wall Street Journal reporter was doing a story on another fraud case in Puerto Rico that was sort of like a benefits where it was stolen, and a supervisor was complicit. And ours is a lot different and a little harder to understand. So we worked with this guy for about 2 months, and then the story finally came out on May 18th, 2011, and that's when a fire was lit. We started getting contact from people that were very interested in following up with this case of fraud, especially congressionally.
But by that time, Jennifer had left the agency, and I was still there. And it was just like a lot of stories we heard today. The retaliation was really beefed up. I was ostracized. I was subject to so many investigations that they were almost weekly. I was a single mother with 2 kids, and they took 2 daughters, and they took advantage of that. A week before Christmas, I was suspended. I was placed in an office on a different floor, in a separate room, and no employees, with cameras on the room, and no employees were even allowed to come down and talk to me. The retaliation really got serious, and at the time I didn't know this was occurring. We need to number slide. Oh yeah, okay, go ahead.
Next slide. So, as Sarah said, I left the agency in 2007 for health reasons, which I believe they now call PTSD. And after the Wall Street Journal story ran, I said we had some congressional interest. So we worked with the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, while also simultaneously working on other issues. We filed Qui Tam litigation in 2011. So while the Qui Tam litigation is going on, we are also simultaneously working with the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations and Dr. Tom Coburn to investigate disability fraud as a whole. And we testified before the Senate Congressional Committee in October of 2013. And you would really think that after you've had a documentary, after you had a Wall Street Journal story and you've had this congressional interest and all of that, that there would be some sort of stop to the disability fraud that was going on, or even stopping the retaliation that Sarah was receiving, but that is not at all what happened.
The retaliation was amplified, as I was talking to you earlier. And at this time, I wouldn't find out about this until the night before we testified at the Senate subcommittee hearing. But the administrative law judge and the attorney, Eric Conn, who were involved in this scheme, hired a private investigator, which was Curtis Wyatt. This is his Facebook post. And he was hired to follow me, which he did. He stalked my house to try to document if I was not working at home when I was supposed to. We had a work at home day, and he camped out on the hillside in the woods above my house. He followed me to my daughter's cheerleading practices, and ultimately he ended up filming me, but because he couldn't get the footage that he needed, he falsified it and made it look like I was going somewhere. I was going shopping on my work at home day, and it ended up me getting footage of me getting out of my vehicle at work. But the agency failed to tell me when they received this video. They chose to investigate me, make me feel like they were going to fire me, and they didn't tell me that my life was in danger. They didn't tell me this man was following me. I did not know this, although I suspected it, but I did not know this. And then in the meantime, I was rushed to DC. I had an MSPB claim pending. I was all of a sudden rushed. The agency wanted me to come to DC. I live in Ohio, to settle my MSPB claim. I would later find out the reason they wanted to settle it and settle it that day, because you know the government is never in any hurry to do anything, was because the judge who was involved in this scheme of having me followed was getting ready to be charged.
Next slide. So we've heard a lot of people. I need slide 14. Yeah, so we've heard a lot of people talk about what you should and should not do as whistleblowers. And I'm going to tell you the single thing that saved our case. We sent every email between 2005, I left in 2007, Sarah left in 2017. Every email was sent with a read receipt, delivery receipt, and then printed out once everyone had read it. And that is important because the agency then deleted the hard drive. So all of those emails disappeared. So had we not had the evidence that we had printed, what we would have had, it would be limited. And you can see this is a shot from the documentary where this is like a fourth of the documents that we have like spread out on the table there. And we chronologically organized all of our emails from beginning to end, and then use that to make what my second point is very, very important to make a timeline of events. So what you consider an adverse action, what you reported, who you reported to, and did anything happen because of it? Like, were you retaliated against because of this report, or did they just ignore it? And so that's what I really wanted to bring out there, is that it just cannot be stressed enough. We should have absolutely hired an attorney sooner, but also document preservation is key.
Speaking of documents, Or number 11.
11.
Or, wait a minute.
12.
What's the next one? Important.
Yeah, I know you've already talked about this.
Okay, so one of the things that we were doing during our Qui Tam was, like she said, we were getting all of our documents together for discovery. But it's interesting, of those thousands of emails that we had, the agency failed to produce not one single document that had the name Eric Conn on it. And there was specific interrogatories requesting this. They chose to instead to purchase shredders. We have footage of them walking out of the building with big black garbage bags full of documents, and they did not take seriously. We had a litigation hold going on, and they did not take seriously, our request or any documentation that we had requested. But the thing about it is they got away with it. How are you supposed to prove retaliation when they got rid of all the documents? But it was interesting, though, that, when we say we kept everything, we kept everything. So every document we had ever sent them, we kept record of.
So do you want to talk now about what they were charged with?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Slide 13. So you're probably wondering, did anybody suffer any consequence? And the answer is part yes, part no. So Mr. Conn, 2 of the judges, and a third party were charged in April of 2006. And the charges varies, but it was basically mail fraud and wire fraud for the judges. And for one of the judges, it was interfering with a federal employee's performance, and then Curtis Wyatt was not charged at all in connection with this case for stalking, threatening, any of that. He was charged with aiding and abetting. So Mr. Conn, after he was charged in 2006, you saw in the promo, he fled, and it took about 6 months to bring him back before they found him. But all in all, yeah. So the first judge you see there on the left is David B. Daugherty, and he was the one who would issue favorable decisions for Mr. Conn. And he was charged with 4 years, or he served 4 years and died a couple of days just shy of getting released from prison. And the one you don't see pictured here is the chief judge of our office, Charlie Paul Andrus, and he served 6 months for his interference with her employment. Nothing else. Mr. Conn served 12 years for the actual fraud, and then when he was brought back, he was sentenced to that in absentia, and when he was brought back, he was sentenced to another 15 years for the flight. And all of this is happening while we're doing the Qui Tam. So if you could go to slide 14. So you're probably asking, were we successful in the Qui Tam? And we were, kind of. So we were awarded $31 million. Did we see $31 million? No, because it's very important as a criminal to hide your assets. And if you've got it, you either need to spend it or hide it. And that is exactly what happened in this case. Do you want me to talk about the settlement agreement? Yeah. So we then engaged in a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice to receive 25% of anything recovered in the criminal matter. And that was not honored. Next slide.
So Ashley was talking yesterday and asked the question, what does justice look like? What would it take to make you whole? That's a loaded question. As Jennifer said, we won our Qui Tam case, but obviously we didn't, and we did not even know about Qui Tam cases when we started reporting. This was not even an issue for us. We got to tell our story through a documentary, which was such an awesome experience, being able to work with film and seeing how movies and documentaries are made. We went to Hollywood and we got to the premiere, and we got to do all that, walk the red carpet. That was really exciting. We've done 60 Minutes and American Greed. But do we feel like we've been made whole? And the answer is no, we really haven't, because the agency, the Social Security agency, there was no accountability for these managers that retaliated. But the managers that knew this was going on and benefited from this activity through bonuses, through promotions, and they had the chance to stop what was going on. Eric Conn could not have done what he did. They laid a path out for him, and they were never held accountable in any. They were never charged. These people, some of which retired, some are still employed there, full benefits, and the people that exposed what they did got zero, basically. We lost our careers. We lost everything that we had worked so hard for throughout the years.
And to Sarah's point, there's years of job loss after this for me. It took me, I left in 2007, and it was 2023 before I found a decent job that didn't criminalize me for my past. And in the Big Con, they ask us to comment a little bit on some things. And so on this next slide, you're going to see another clip from the Big Con.
And I'm never going to feel complete. And I don't know that either of us will ever feel complete. But for me, it's the lack of accountability. There are people that committed federal crimes, people who destroyed evidence, people who stalked federal government employees, people who stalked witnesses, and nobody served any time. Nobody was even charged. They get to retire with their federal government salaries and their federal government benefits, and we don't have that luxury. We're never going to have that kind of security, we just won't. And I mean, I think I'm always hopeful that when we talk to somebody new, that something will happen. It never happens. And I don't get upset a lot until I get mad. And when I'm mad, I cry. And what they got away with, nobody should be able to get away with that. You shouldn't be able to destroy someone's life and someone's livelihood without being held accountable. It's just as simple as that.
So what are we doing now?
And I'm
So we created an organization. It's called Carver Griffith, and through this, Okay.
Yeah. So to Sarah's point, what we're talking about, what we're doing now, you're going to see this photo that you see behind us is us in the aftermath of the Big Con. I got a strange LinkedIn message from a guy that I had no idea who it was, and I thought it was not real. John Gill, who is now the president of the Association of Accredited Fraud Examiners, who Andy spoke about yesterday, saw our video, couldn't believe that this was an actual thing that happened. And, I got that email and I started digging into him to see if this was legit, and it was. and they did a presentation, and they're very good about talking about fraudsters and their motivations and why they do what they do. And so we participated in a video documentary short that they did for that. And then in turn, Mr. Gill nominated us to receive the Cliff Robertson Sentinel Award, which Tom's not here, but Tom was recipient of it this year. We were recipient last year for choosing truth over self. And this is our picture of receiving the award at the convention. It was a wonderful experience. I cannot recommend that if you are involved as a whistleblower and fraud is an aspect, get involved with the ACFE, because that is a resource that we did not know. And it's a very useful resource, and it's a very welcoming community to the whistleblower community. And, you might find some connections there that may be able to help in ways that you didn't think about. For example, we also were invited to take our certified fraud examiner's test, and we took it, and by the grace of God, we passed that. My brain's a little fried, but now Sarah and I are certified fraud examiners. And it was a great experience. Okay, so next slide.
And I always say, don't let what happened to you in the past define you. Get up and do something. Use that knowledge that you have to create new opportunities. We organized Carver Griffith, and through our organization, it allows us to tell our story and to continue to advocate for whistleblower protections. And we also opened AL Disability Services, and that is to represent Social Security clients that need help to navigate through the complex Social Security system. So we use that knowledge to be able to help clients. And this is our Carver Griffith, which it's kind of a speaking platform. Like I said, we advocate still for whistleblower protections, for SES employees what we believe is SES employees, senior executive service members, should not be able to sue employees. We're not able to sue our supervisors for the retaliation. We can't sue them individually. But as it is now, those government supervisors can sue us as employees.
Next slide. And talk about jury trials too. Yeah. So expanding on what Sarah said and what we've heard from Tom and one of the other panels, one of the key hurdles in Qui Tam litigation is whether your circuit recognizes your ability as a government employee to be a relator. Now, it's different if you're a private citizen, but if you're a government employee and you're still employed in the agency, most circuits do not recognize you as the ability to bring forth a fraud claim. Because, as the panel earlier today spoke, you are a government employee, and that is expected as a part of your duty. So in our particular case, I had left in 2007, but at the time of litigation, Sarah was still a government employee. So that presented some hurdles for us. And so Tom also spoke, I believe, about jury trials. And that is a critical thing to advocate for in whistleblowers, because we do not have the ability for the case to be heard by a jury. The outcome for whistleblowers could be so much better if the evidence could be presented and seen by members of the community. As it stands now, that is not the process, and we do not have access to jury trials. We were in the Sixth Circuit, and that circuit does not recognize government employees as relators, and it does not, any circuit, allow for jury trials.
Also, excuse me. Also, I'd like to add that as a whistleblower, I recommend that you to keep your mind off things, and I did this all the way going through what we went through, and I continue to do so. Volunteer in your community. I spend a lot of time with animals and working with the shelter. I've even started working in their surgical unit, and you don't even know how much that has helped me to fill up that void time. And another thing that I did that Jennifer to this day thinks I'm crazy, I went and visited Eric in prison. We're pen pals. I talked to him. He writes me, he calls me, and I just got a letter last week. And a lot of you will probably think that's a really odd kind of a situation, but it was a really healing kind of a situation. It worked for me because I had to know, why did you do this? If you'd just known me, would you have done this? And I got my answers. So does that make me whole? It helps. Yeah, it does somewhat help. And we have a message on here from Eric himself. We'll let you listen to.
Next slide. I should also point out that she left me in the car while she did the 2-hour prison visit with Mr. Conn in February freezing cold. But anyway, here's a message from Mr. Conn.
This call is from a federal prison. As if we didn't know. Yeah, so what's going on with you?
At this point, it's been like, what, 2 years since we first started talking?
It has been a long time. Yeah, it has. Whether I get out of jail, don't get out of jail, or never get out of jail, what I did was wrong, and I regret it.
Would you consider yourself in the story the bad guy?
Yeah, I think I would. Because I was an agent of something that was wrong, and I knew it was wrong. I mean, I lived my whole life trying to do the right thing, and then poof, I justified it. Well, it's okay because of this, or okay because of that. I'd call myself the bad guy. I would. I truly would. Yeah. And that's not an easy thing to say, to be honest with you, but I would. There's no hero. The only heroes here are Jennifer and Sarah.
That's wild to hear you say that, Eric.
Yeah. Well, it's not something I say lightly, you know. It took me a long time to get there. Don't get me wrong. But they're the only heroes. I'm the bad guy. Not evil bad guy. Just wrong. You know? I almost want to cry when I say it. To be honest with you, I'm sitting here back-to-back tears.
Next slide. So we've often been asked to describe our personality and describe how we've survived this. Most whistleblowers are singular entities and are going through that alone. Sarah and I were not. We always had each other. And when one of us was ready to get up, the other was there to kick the other in the rear. And I think this quote kind of summarizes, well, maybe Sarah more than I, but if you tell us that there isn't an answer, or you tell us you can't help us, or you tell us the answer is no, or you tell us we cannot do something, we will do it twice and take pictures. And that's kind of the mentality we've had throughout this whole thing.
Get out of your corner.
Yeah, to get out of your comfort zone. It's not comfortable to want to go to Congress and just mow down a bunch of naval cadets to get to the senator that you see in the hallway, but she has done it. And more times than not, we have forced ourselves into congressional offices and contact with those individuals. And every single contact that we can make, we make. For example, Sarah reached out to Eric Conn's former secretary because she wanted to know that side of it. Do we have any more information that would be helpful to us? Like just anybody who can help, or anybody who can further our story, to get our story in front of someone, whether that's writing congressional officials, whether that's contacting local television stations, whether it is finding somebody who could possibly write a book, anything. We have reached out to countless reporters, authors, and the like. And so I think this is a perfect ending, and this describes us pretty well.
Thank you for listening to our story.
Thank you so much. I don't think I can follow that story properly, but you did tee me off a bit, so I'll try to go with that. My name is Rebecca. I am a co-founder, at least a cool name, of PST. And I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing and why we're here. I first want to thank Jackie, Paul, everyone at Whistleblowers of America, because we really appreciate you doing this conference, and I love being part of it. I don't really have a lot of slides. I just have that one. Did you get? Yeah. They're not really slides. They're just links. So just tee those up. Okay. So I am not a whistleblower. I do what I do because of people like you. I am co-founder of PST and have been working in the whistleblowing support world for about 5 years. I come to it because I was a journalist way back when, and I really saw how sources just didn't have the protection that journalists had. So I was lucky to be able, after many years as a humanitarian overseas, I became the head of operations at the Signals Network, which does whistleblowing support, based in France, and worked there for 3 years. And then sort of like, and left and spent about a year going, well, there's something missing, and what is it? Like, where can we go with whistleblowing support that's not currently being provided by Jackie, by Gap, by others? There's something missing. And one of the areas that we had really worked in extensively was in tech. In 2021, there was a very big whistleblower, Frances Hogan. She was at from Facebook, which changed its name during her coming out in October 2021, changed their name to Meta, and she made a massive impact in the public's eye, and it really, really helped me understand what we could do, and that the storytelling and the fact that it allowed people to rethink how they were using social media was very impactful to me at being in the support space. Myself and everyone else in the whistleblowing support area felt at that time that we were in the golden ages of whistleblowing support, especially in tech. And Frances's story came out in a way that she did it well. It was tough. She's had a lot of, it's not been easy, but it got out there and it was very broadly received. So we really thought that would open the floodgates and we'd get a lot more coming forward. It was exactly the opposite is what happened. And that is really because the companies like Meta just closed the gates. I mean, it's such a bigger chill, non-disparagement, way more used. The constant threat of being fired, and the constant use of stock and other means to keep people in line. So 3 years after that, I had left the Signals Network and I got together with two colleagues of the whistleblowing support space. Jennifer Gibson, who is a co-founder of PST. She was also at the Signals Network. She was our lead attorney. And Amber Scora. And she had started an organization called Lioness, which had been focusing on storytelling for whistleblowers. The three of us sort of were looking around last summer and going, well, what can we do? How can we add and not like just, try? We're not looking to sort of do what Gap does or do what others do. We wanted to do something extra and different that would bring more people into the world of telling the truth. More people who were concerned feeling like, okay, I can say something. The way we did that was we created, could you just put the slide back, the safe, the second slide up? We did this a number of ways. The first thing we did was we looked at how do you go upstream from the person who is ready to be the whistleblower, who's ready to go, we call it full whistleblower. those people are still needed. We're working with one right now from WhatsApp. It's super important. It's very, very, very important. But how do we bring more people into the fold who are not ready to go full whistleblower? We did this through our SAFE. We created a SAFE. It is a tech tool that allows you to deposit information securely. The point of the SAFE is you as a worker, and we were focusing on tech workers. You are, as a worker, are sitting there and you're not sure what you're seeing as an issue or not. Is it fraud? Is it something else? Is it illegal? In the world of tech, there's a lot that goes on that's not illegal, that's not regulated, that we don't know what to do with. I mean, there was just a Senate hearing last week on chatbots, and the fact that there are chatbots that are encouraging people to kill themselves. It's not illegal. So there's a lot of that's going on, but you don't really know. So in our SAFE, you can safely deposit your concern. We don't ask for documents. We don't ask for any great detail at all initially, because we don't want you to take that risk initially. We just want you to deposit, this is what I'm seeing and I'm concerned. You then have two options. You can talk to a lawyer right away. We have staff. We have two attorneys on staff. Jennifer is the head of our team, and then we have another attorney on tap who's supposed to be here, but she couldn't make it today. And they give pro bono legal support right away. And so if you request it, you will immediately have that protection, and it will be underprivileged. So it could be completely nothing. You could be like, well, I don't want to do anything else, or you could continue with them. So you have that choice. The other choice is that you do nothing. We got this idea through an organization called Callisto. Callisto is as a tool for sexual abuse. It's used on college campuses. And the idea is that you can deposit what happened to you and the name or some identifying characteristic of the perpetrator, and you can just leave it there. And so this allows you to show that you documented something when it happened, when in 10 years or 12 years or 15 years someone else comes forward, you have that record. The other thing that Callisto does is match people. So the concept being, you put in about a particular perpetrator, someone else does, you then have the option to, through legal counsel, to go forward and to meet that other person or not meet the other, to see, okay, you're not alone. And either that gives you support because you're not alone, or you decide to take it further with legal action. We took that concept and we use it within tech. So the idea is you don't have enough information. You don't really know what's going on. You're worried about something. Let's say you're at a tech company and they're building things for a genocide or something along those lines. You have the option to say something. You can just put that in. You can say what either the department is or the company is. And if there's a match, we will let you know. So that takes us to the big idea that we had, which was collective whistleblowing. And that's why you guys teed me up, because there is massive benefit in numbers. And you guys pointed out some of them, but also just if you have like 10, 12 people at a tech company coming forward, maybe one of them can be public, maybe two of them. But the others can be anonymous, and they can continue to work in their jobs, and they can contribute to the story that needs to be told. So collectiveness is a big, big part of what we try to do within our SAFE. And from a psychosocial standpoint, it is massively helpful to have the collective voice. We worked with a collective at Microsoft that brought forward stories around their lack of concern regarding net zero carbon emissions. Microsoft loves to tout that, really talks about it a lot, but does a lot that's actually very much not carbon neutral. So we had a collective that we worked with on that. And we have a number of collectives that we're working with right now within the tech industry. So that was the premise of our SAFE. And then if you could just, what happened, so we got funding a year ago. We've built our SAFE. We've been using it. We've got matches in it. We've been reported in a number of magazines. We had a big profile of us in Wired magazine, and we are now moving into our second year. But what happened after we started? Could you just put up the third one for me, please? After we started was the federal administration changed. So when we started our work, we were focusing. Oh, it was before this. We started our work in tech. We continue to do a lot of work in tech, and that has been our focus. But the federal situation at the beginning of the year, and as I know everyone here knows, became quite tenuous with a lot of federal workers. So we, along with so many amazing organizations like GAP, started to help federal workers as well as tech workers. What was really interesting in that work from our standpoint was how collective federal workers were in terms of getting their stories out. So there was a lot of camaraderie, a lot of coming together, a lot of signal chats and all kinds of support happening, which helped actually us prove the point of collective. And how important that is. And so one of the groups that really showed it very clearly was the Federal Workers Against DOGE. They did this huge video series. It was video and audio because most of the people were not. You couldn't see who they were. But it's called I Do Solemnly Swear, and it tells their story about what their work was, or what their work is if they were still employed, and why it was important. So certainly it's died down some, but certainly for the first 5-6 months of the year, there was a real disparagement toward federal workers, as we know, and this was a series that both helped them psychologically deal with what was happening, but also to inform the public why their jobs were important. We took this idea to tech because that is what is a really amazing collective approach. And in the corporate world, that is less, it's not frowned upon. It's just not as it's not done as much. And so now we are working with a number of collectives within the tech industry. Yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to say. The last slide is just actually literally a Substack of ours from today, with Aisha Coffey, who's heads up the Federal Workers Against DOGE group, and her story about why she did what she did in terms of coming forward as to her work at FDA and after she was riffed with DOGE. So I have stickers with our little characters on them, and it's got a QR code if you are interested and you want to know more. Yeah, we are thrilled to be here, and thank you everyone for all you do.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Jade Singleton, and my primary focus has been studying corporate gaslighting and workplace gaslighting and what it looks like and what the different features of it are. And how I got connected with WoA was because they provided so much research that I needed for that 3 years of a dissertation, because there's so many overlaps with what happens from a gaslighting perspective. So I had not seen your presentation, so I wanted to be able to kind of sit back here and take it in and be actually listening to your words. There were a couple of things that really stood out to me. that I think really helped with some of that psychological manipulation. Because what we see with gaslighting, the gaslighter wants you to replace your truth, your memory, even your identity at times with their own. And so there are very subversive tactics that are used. And I heard a few of those around the isolation, around the kind of dismissal over and over again. And these are all key features. But one of the things I think that is very interesting about this dynamic, what I would say is that you all both offer each other a lot of co-regulation. This is incredibly important if you're feeling like you're being gaslit and manipulated. Having someone there that you can even check in on reality with is the saving grace. And I'm saying that because after studying this in the type of trenches that I was studying it in, I've advised everywhere. I've advised at NASA, I've advised at Amazon, I've advised at Uber Europe. When you get deep beyond the veneer and beyond the pleasantries to see what type of incivilities take place and how they ultimately grow, you get a very keen understanding of the damage, the psychological and the physical damage that is done to folks. And so it becomes less of an interesting topic to study and more of a critical type of life-saving mission. I know you all are very, very, very well aware of some of those psychological and physiological elements, but I don't think that it's talked about enough as far as how it sits within us, how it sits within our bodies, and what these exact triggers can look like over time. It's kind of like it happens to us slowly, right? And so what I do is I like to help folks to be able to focus in, hear the narrative, understand the narrative, and code it, right? Some of the things we notice within corporate lexicons is they tend to take on a narrative structure. So when we think about organizations, we tend to think about them as like entities, but they're organisms, right? They're made up of living, breathing people. And organizations full of people, just like we all do with our immune systems, it wants to protect itself. And there are narratives that take place within that institution to protect itself. And so what I do is really focus on finding out what the real actual narrative is, right? What are those real codes and how do we find them and how do we ultimately help to guard ourselves against them? So I want to say just, thank you. I was delighted to listen to this. I'm sorry that this has happened. I'd be incredibly interested to hear what he had to say for himself. And how he actually thought about the reality of what had happened and taken place. Just as a researcher, that was fascinating to me, and I admire your bravery. And that's all from me.
I feel included. I feel like I'm kind of like, here, let's move you out of the way. So I feel like bodily, I want to get out of the way as quickly as possible.
Well, no, I mean, I think you're an important part of this conversation because we're trying to sort of transition into the how we heal and how we overcome the adversity. That was the point of the panel, and I know you've done some amazing work with people to try to get them to a place where they can heal and have that safe space and working through all of this. So I'm going to ask, are there any questions from the audience at this point? Oh, good. Somebody we haven't heard from yet. If you can introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Lainey D'Alessandro. I'm a 35-year retiree of the federal government, and I retired as an inspector general. And I'm now working with the National Security Leaders for America, which is a bipartisan group of mostly senior leaders in the national security arena. And we have representatives from the Pentagon, Navy, Army, all the services, the intelligence community, and ambassadors from State Department and USAID. And we are trying to do what we can to help the federal government retain its capabilities because we're concerned about them eroding very, very quickly. And from a whistleblower perspective, especially at the IRS, there's a big piece of your story that I'm very curious about, which is all the people that you worked for. Like, where are the core values from the IRS and those managers? What kind of management training did they get to be so resistant to what you all were saying? You all should have been lauded as heroes within that organization, and you were not. And it's very disappointing to hear that, because it's the biggest flaw that I think in the way you were treated, like you were excoriated for doing the right thing. And I know that's the dilemma all whistleblowers have to a certain extent. But when you started reporting to your organization, why didn't they respond to you? Do you have any insight into that?
That's a really long answer, but in short, what we discovered over a period of time was that initially reporting verbally, if you report verbally, they can just ignore you. And so what we didn't really talk about is that when we started reporting and documenting that, to create that pathway, we had no idea the scale. And the incentive in our case was twofold. Social Security Administration in the disability process prioritizes numbers and statistics. So the amount of cases coming in and the amount of cases going out, how long they sit in one status, and how they move. They don't want anything to sit. At the time that we did this, at the hearing level, the wait for a person to receive a hearing was around 18 months, which is an extensive period of wait for somebody in such hardship. But there were internal incentives to managers, supervisors, and directives for those statistics to be high. So if you're a high producing office, you receive awards, you receive monetary prestigious sort of awards, but then also monetary bonuses. And in addition to that, in our case, what we would find out later is that there were bribes. And so not only was Conn bribing the judge was then filtering some of that money down to some of the managerial staff. And so within the agency, quantity is prioritized over quality. So the faster in, the faster out, the better. The quality of that decision and the legal defensibility of that decision, not so much. So there are things that will get overturned later if you deny them quickly, but if you award everybody, those don't get picked up for review like the denial cases do. So it's easier to sweep that fraud on through because nobody's looking at it because this person's getting money. So, I mean, it's quite a complicated answer, but money.
Well, yeah. I liked the other component of your question that was around what were the values that were taught, right? What were those core values? So when you go and you look at an institution to determine whether or not it's a psychologically safe or a psychologically manipulative environment, you definitely want to look at their boilerplate, what it is that they say ultimately that they do, what they value among all else, right? Those top priorities, and then see what it is and who it is that they reward and who it is that they punish and what they ultimately reward or what they actually punish, because oftentimes they're completely different, right? So you say, yeah, we reward honesty and we hold honesty as the top priority, but then those folks are kind of visibly injured by coming forward, and that narrative carries forward. And as human beings, we're looking all the time. We don't even notice it. We're hypervigilant to see what helps us to belong to the group, right? And so when we're consistently scanning, where am I ultimately safe? Where am I ultimately safe? And we see punitive damage that's done. It's an institutional betrayal. Your values say one thing, but I'm living another.
So this question is for Dr. Jade Singleton. So what role do leaders and organizations have in protecting and supporting?
I can't see you, sister. Let me see your pretty face.
So what role do leaders and organizations have in protecting and supporting young Black women who are often targeted in workplaces?
Yeah.
And what advice would you give to those women as they navigate these challenges?
Let me take a breath and take a second, because this is what I do also. On the side, I run a company called Dakani Collective that's about 5,000 Black women, and we constantly dealing with what's happening there in that space. I'm going to just tell you the truth. I have a canned answer, but I'll just tell you the truth. There's nothing that can be done. There's nothing you personally can do when you're dealing with issues that are that macro social. And so what I advise specifically for Black women, because you have a different type of relationship with the country, you have a different type of relationship with labor in general and labor evolution. It's going to look completely different. So your responses are not going to be met the same most of the time. The only thing that you can do, instead of thinking about trying to influence the folks around you who are ultimately supposed to protect you, you're asking them if they're already toxic. I'm not talking about healthy organizations. If this is an already toxic situation, you're asking them to do something that they don't know how to do, right? Because they can't get past what it is that your ultimate role, your social role, is supposed to be. And so in those particular instances, what I tell Black women and to do is to either figure out your exit strategy very quickly into a safer organization, because no matter what anyone says, they may say, oh, if this happens everywhere. You don't know how many times I've heard that. This happens in every organization. No, it doesn't. I've worked with very healthy organizations and very toxic organizations and very inclusive organizations, very restrictive organizations. So really, if you're having that experience where you feel you need to train out, you could never train that out. It's too much of a burden. It will burn you out. Okay.
Oh, yes. I'm trying to frame my thoughts, but just to add on Jennifer's response to your question, something Jade said really rang true to me, that the organization, it's like an organism, and it wants to protect itself. And I think in their case, you had the Office of General Counsel at Social Security. After you guys went public, they jumped in to investigate. And one of the key attorneys there actually is trying to protect the organization and went after you guys. The core values don't exist. They didn't learn their lesson. Fast forward 10 years, I'm in the I remain in the IG's office. The same individual is now in the IG's office, and I made protected disclosures. I prevailed before the MSPB and on appeal, got into the press, and this individual who went after Jennifer and Sarah and is now, a senior SCS over me, was named as one of the retaliators, and I got sued for $1 billion for defamation. Then it was reduced to 15 million, along with, she sued the Washington Post, Pogo, government executive, various reporters, but I'm, the first name on the lawsuit. So I guess, I bring this up because what Jade said about the organization protecting itself, the key leaders of the organization feel duty bound to protect the organization. And if it is a choice between protecting the organization and their careers, or employees who are speaking out against the organization, they're going to protect their careers and go after the employees. And if those core values aren't examined and things change and there's accountability, it will just happen, and it will continue to happen, and it will become worse and worse and worse. Wrongdoing at SSA, and then now wrongdoing in the IG's office. And I mean, I don't know if you agree, but IGs should be held to a bit of a higher standard, So anyway, that's my thought.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, okay. Well, do we have one online?
They are good to come off mute.
Okay. Teresa? Teresa?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. My name is Teresa Tumlin, and I am an FBI whistleblower. I have been a whistleblower since July of 2012. Or I'm sorry, 2014. So a little over 11 years. My question is, I worked for the FBI in the National Name Check Program, which is a fundable department within the FBI. And we are right now in some settlement discussions regarding my case. So I do see a light at the end of the tunnel within my case. The OIG had found it in 2020 for me that reprisal occurred. The OARM went back and said, oh, let's fight this. And the OIG came back in 2022 with another report. They took out some key phrases in their report and they softened the tone, but they still said, hey, reprisal occurred. So both reports from 2020 and 2022 states that reprisal did occur, in fact, occur in my case. I never thought about the national name check aspect of it, that they're a fundable entity within the agency. Should I be looking about going after and putting the national name check on the line to help pay for some of my like attorney fees and for whistleblowing against their section? What are your thoughts on that?
Anybody?
I think she needs to talk to a lawyer, and we're happy to help her. If she wants to contact us, she can have a pro bono consultation.
Okay.
But that wouldn't be me. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, that sounds more like an individual issue rather than a discussion issue.
Yeah, that's a little bit of out of our wheelhouse.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's more of a comment than a question, or maybe there is a question, but just Jennifer, something that you talked about that really struck me was when you talked about your feelings of, I think it was injustice, unfairness, and betrayal by the legal system when the people, responsible, the wrongdoers, they got home free, and the corporation just paid a fine, and that was all there was to it. So this really, it took me back and reminded me of the similar feelings of outrage, after the 2008 near meltdown of the global economy. same outrage that it was the corporations, you know, that got fined and the individuals responsible home free. But that gave rise to something people here, the lawyers will probably remember, something called the Yates Memo. Sally Yates, I think she was the assistant Solicitor General, and she sent around a memo to say, okay, you know, in the future, we're going to be looking at charging the CEOs. They're going to break the, I think it's called the corporate veil. That's, you know, what's protecting the individuals. So the corporations pay the fine, and, you know, the individuals get home free. So I guess my question would be, and my comment would be, you know, there is a definite almost invisible, but that's the visible part of it, force for good and for changing that in the legal system. And do you think there's any hope for finding it again for the future? I know that times are difficult now, but it was the new government that got rid of that in 2016, so that no more going after the individuals. But I guess it's something you can hang on to as hope for the future, maybe? I don't know.
You know, what we're finding out, and we've attended a lot of Senate hearings, is we're dealing with the Social Security Administration. And if you are a U.S. worker, I mean, 95 to 98% of you probably have paid into this system. And they make their own regulations, and they make their regulations in a way they don't want Congress to understand. They basically, and this goes with some other government agencies, they basically rule themselves. They make their computer systems, their regulations, the administration hard for one to understand. And I'll give you this example. You hear it so often. If Congress asks our commissioner a specific question, 9 times out of 10, she's going to say, we'll get back with you on that, knowing that there's probably not going to be a follow-up hearing. If a specific congressman asks for, say, like a report, a status, you know, how many cases, you know, did Judge Daugherty rule favorable between 2007 and 2016. I'm here to tell you, as a government employee, I can have that report to you in probably 30 seconds. The government's response is, that's overly broad and burdensome. It will take a lot of our staff months to prepare that data. We need congressmen to sit there and say, you know, based on your reporting system, these ladies right here pulled these documents. They brought them to our office, and they pretty much did. Senator Coburn's office, we worked really closely with them, and they would call us and they say, what do we specifically ask for? And we would tell them the name of the report, this is what you put into, you know, into the data, and you just push go. And if it had not been for them asking us, the workers, the people who put this information in, who know where this information is at, you cannot depend on the leaders of these government organizations to get Congress the reports and the information that is needed.
And to expand on that a little further, one of the things that we talk about, and also with Debbie, is this, in this idea of lack of accountability that we're talking about. In our Qui Tam litigation, we could not name senior executive service officials. There are no repercussions for those in management or upper level executive positions to not engage in the fraud. They receive bribes, not all of them, but some of them. But we can't name them in the suit as long as they are still employed by the agency. Now, I realize this problem is unique to government employees. So, for example, one of the people that we talked about here was Charlie Paul Andrus, who was the chief judge of our office, later would become regional chief. We could not physically name him in any litigation or sue him personally because he was a senior executive service official. That goes for example, we can't sue them, but there is no bar precluding senior executive service officials from suing the whistleblower, which in Debbie's case has happened. So they can come after us, and we have the burden to find, an attorney and fight that battle, even if it's a slap suit, even if it's just designed to get you to go away. We cannot countersue. We have no course of action. And that is something that I feel like jury trials, where we discussed that, would go a long way. You've got to be able to hold the right people accountable. But that depends on good government contact and people on that end willing to make change into how the process works.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm sorry, it can't be a question because I had a schedule conflict, but I could add something that might be helpful. You can't countersue, but you could be seeking sanctions for a frivolous attack on you, and that could get some sort of relief. And the narrowness of the U.S. whistleblower laws is not typical. We're a small minority compared to the rest of the world. Most of the world's whistleblower laws, even before and then a lot more after passage of the 2019 European Union Whistleblower Directive, there's a whistleblower defense against retaliatory civil or criminal litigation. And we tried really hard to get that into legislation, which is on the road to passage to overhaul for government contractors. But the Republicans in Congress said they would kill the whole bill if that weren't pulled from it.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I thank this panel. I feel like every time we conclude a panel, I feel like, oh, this panel could have been a whole day discussion. So I appreciate you guys making your comments brief and for sharing your stories and your work and your experiences with us. I'm so grateful that you are all here and were able to participate today. So thank you.
First, before I do anything, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for inviting me back again. And most of all, thank you for the wonderful, wonderful work that you do. And I'm so happy to be able to be part of this in a very peripheral way. When I look and I hear what's going on, I'm just so pleased to know that you, all of you, are in the world doing the right stuff and working to reduce the violence and to keep us all good. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about the concept of how we stay connected. I was just going to kind of go through some very basic kinds of things, but most of the stuff you already know. But I want to just say to you, more than anything else, this connection that you have now, that you have throughout the year, that you've had over the years in coming together as people who are grounded in justice, who are grounded in fairness, who are grounded in caring, is wonderful. And I want to spend a little bit of time letting you know that I'm listening to what you're saying about the importance of being connected. I was so touched earlier today when I was hearing just the desperate situation that one can find themselves sleeping on a cot thinking about ending their life, and then just to be able to find that connection with another being, whether it's a rabbit, which I think is just beautiful, or a dog, as they talked about yesterday. To find that connection that helps you say, oh, I'm part of something else. I'm part of something bigger, and I'm not alone. And that to me is the biggest message I want to make today is I just want to remind people to slow down and to take a moment and notice the connectedness that's happening in this room and in this meeting, wherever we are. So that's kind of what I want to do, is just say thank you for letting me be part of this and remind you that the importance of you slowing down to be able to recognize that we are not alone, because that's what will kill you, is being alone. Let me just pull up this PowerPoint. Let me see if I can get it to share. And I'm going to talk for a few minutes. I promise I will get you out of here, because I know that you want to spend time with one another and you want to get out into the world and rejuvenate. Let's see. Let me just, I'm going to start this. So I'm assuming that you can see my PowerPoint. Can somebody let me know if that's true? Because when I do this, my screen disappears.
We can see it partially. It's like cell phone view or something.
Oh,
we can see it full screen earlier.
Okay, let me just step out, go out of this, and let me do this. And now I have to go back here. I'm sorry, folks. You know, this is the part about technology that is wonderful and is horrible at the same time. I just did a training a couple days ago using Zoom, and I spent a good bit of time figuring out how to share using my Zoom. It worked quite well. So I am just seeing, there we go. Now, can you see it now?
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to just go through some things here, but you know, I looked at what I wanted to say, and what I wanted to talk about is, you know, you guys are all talking about being in the truth, being in the reality, being in what is factual. And I'm just concerned that sometimes you forget to do that for your own health and well-being, because it's just too easy to move away from that, given the world that you work in. I just give you an example. So how many of you have been asked sometime, oh, how are you? I'm fine. Or even somebody who says, oh, you just went through something terrible. How are you? I'm fine. Well, you know, that's part of the way that we cope with things. And it's okay to do that. And if you need to stop and really think, am I really fine? I had the opportunity, I was doing a training earlier this week, and a couple of the people who came into my office to be part of a live stream that I was doing. One of them is a worker for the county of San Diego. She's a social worker, and she works with mental health, and she's been around for a while, so she's very competent in what she does. But we're doing the training, and at some point I realized that earlier that day at her location there had been shots fired, and so somebody mentioned that to me, and so I looked at her and I said, so how are you? And her response was, I'm fine. Well, you know, it's not a normal thing to be in your workplace and having shots fired. Now, luckily, nobody was injured. Nobody was physically harmed in that event. But the other part of that is she wasn't fine. I mean, you could, if you talked with her a little bit about it, you could immediately hear that there was a lot of upset that she was still carrying. Now, when we saw that, I said, okay, I hear the words, but I'm not sure that's the truth of it. So how do we tell the truth? Well, we explore a little bit, we look for the facts, and then I asked her to look deeper inside and to just rate how upset she felt, 0 to 10. And she could tell me when she stopped long enough to look and say, oh, I'm probably about a level 7, 1 out of 10 scale, 10 being the worst upset. She said, I'm about a 7. Okay, that's fine. You stopped, you looked, you can feel it. And you know what now? Let's do some tapping. So we did a little thought field therapy, tapping on meridian treatment points to alleviate overwhelming emotion. And then she could say it went down because she was paying attention to it. And then when I asked her how she was, it was like, oh, I'm okay. I'm still a little bothered by it. The fact that she could get honest with herself and get honest with us about the fact that this was having ongoing, this was in the evening that I saw her, the event was earlier in the day, means she's got a chance now to really take care of herself and to let others help her take care of it. Now, why am I going on about this? Because I think that most of the people out there who are doing this work are not paying attention to themselves and finding the easy ways that are available to them to help them be better and to stay on top of what's going on. So I'm just going to go through some things here and talk a bit, and then we'll get to some questions and some answers. I might ask you to do an exercise with me. I always start with this group because I'm just very aware of how true it is that if we don't do this, if we don't struggle with these things, if we don't demand, nothing will happen. And so I so appreciate your existence and you guys are being in there, because you got to be able to stay in the fight. This is a struggle that's going to go on for a long time. And these are extremely powerful forces that are going to impact you, and you're going to feel them a lot. Now, so, you know, because you work in a world of violence. Now, whether that's physical violence or that's emotional violence, I just want to be clear with you that what you do is very important, because all of us have a right to be safe in our bodies, have a right to feel what we feel and to express it, have a right to think what we think and express it, and have a right to do what we choose to do as long as it doesn't harm anybody else. And that's what you are all about, is reducing this violence by staying strong and exercising your human right. And those things are your rights: to be safe in your body, to think and feel and express those thoughts and feelings, and to do as you choose. So, and what you need to realize is that violence in any form, when somebody tries to stop you from thinking or feeling the way you think and feeling and doing as you choose, is a form of violence. And that violence causes stress in your life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be traumatic stress. It's just stress. You know, if it is traumatic stress and you end up with PTSD, remember, these are real things. We have lots of ways to help people. We have lots of ways to work with you being better. If you have PTSD, then work really hard at healing it, and you will, you know, as best you can. I mean, one of the things about PTSD is that we know that the event that caused it crushed us. It wasn't just a little, oh, this is more stress than I'm used to. We were crushed in some ways. And that crushing of our spirit and our will and our capacity requires some healing and coming back. So if you have PTSD, or if you are working in this field, you are at risk for it. And getting PTSD is not a conscious decision to make. And what happens is things suddenly that you thought you had control over, you don't. You're having re-experiencing going on, flashbacks. You're finding that learned responses that you have been reinforced and activated even when you don't want them to happen. And nobody's going to reason you out of your feelings or what your experience is. That's all part of what it means to have PTSD, but it doesn't mean that you have to live like that and that you can't continue to be better. So I just want to start by saying, here's a QR code. This will take you to an 8-item personalized quiz to discover where you are on your recovery journey. So this will take you to a website. You simply put in your email address. You answer these 8 questions in there's a scale of 5 different ways that you do it. And at the end, we'll see how far are you on your journey of recovery. Now, and I'll also send you some free materials about things that you can do to help yourself. But I want you to know that that's available for you if you do have it, or even if you're concerned that you may not be getting better as fast as you'd like. This is a place to kind of be able to track that for yourself. So that's available to you. Also available to you is some typing patterns. This QR code will take you to a tapping pattern that I'll show you in a couple of minutes that will help downregulate what's going on in your system at any given time. Now, I'm going to move away from PTSD because we know it's real and we know there's a way to heal it. But I want to go back to this idea of, are you paying attention to your own health and well-being? I mean, there's a number of things that we look at. When I'm working on a crisis shelter, or when I'm working with people and they say, I'm fine, I go, okay, but just let me ask a couple of more questions. How's your sleep? Are you sleeping? Are you staying awake? Are you being able to get to sleep and waking up and can't get back to sleep? Do you have a regular schedule? You know, all of this about sleep is fundamental to your mental health. Persistent sleep issues often indicate underlying concerns that therapy can address. Not only therapy, but just an intention to heal can help you with that. But it's very important. Somebody says, I'm fine. You might just say, well, how'd you sleep last night? Or, you know, you can look at other things like physical behaviors, changes, food relating issues. Oh, I'm fine. Well, how are you eating? Too much, too little, odd hours? You getting a lot of heartburn? Oh, okay. So somebody, you reach out to somebody, or you think to yourself, how am I doing? And you say, I'm fine. Well, ask a more specific question. Are you having difficulty focusing at work or home? Do you slip off the topic? You can't stay on task? You just can't seem to get things done? Well, yeah. So you're not fine. These questions are the questions that you need to pay attention to. Now, I'm fine. Emotional and changes in your interests. Okay. Difficulty staying positive. Loss of interest in things that you used to find fun. Unable to enjoy those things like reading or TV or movies or gaming or sports, or just even a nice dinner with friends, a good conversation. Are you doing things like excessive sexual thoughts, feelings, or actions? I mean, that are making you uncomfortable? These are ways that you run away from what you're really feeling. And that disconnection is really important. When activities that once brought you joy and you feel empty or overwhelming, it's time to maybe reach out for professional help. Now, I'm not saying that we have to have professional help. We need to reach out, because what's the biggest thing that's going to help people do better? So I just want to mention a couple of other these things that I ask people about when they say, I'm fine. Oh, yeah? So why were you driving 100 miles an hour last night on your motorcycle? You know, that's risk-taking behavior that you probably don't normally do, but we don't know about that. Are you pushing too hard in sports? Are you getting physical injuries going on? Are you impulsively making large bets or financial decisions that are not in your best interest? Because the risk helps you not pay attention to your feelings and what's going on with you. Are you having excessive feelings? Are you having panic attacks? Oh, I'm fine. Yeah. Well, have you had a panic attack lately? People will tell you if you ask, but you have to ask. And why is it important to keep asking? Because so many things happen that we want to run away from when you're working in this violent environment that you work with, when you're working under this stress. So using, substances, whether it's prescription or not prescription, are you doing more than you normally do? So what you want to do is pay attention to what has been the change in your life. And if those changes are not positive, then you know what? It's time to do something. Now, what do? Well, listen to those you know. Listen to those you trust. Look, if you're answering the question, I'm fine, but there are loved ones who are saying, no, you're not. They've noticed some changes in your behavior. No, you're not. You're being negative. If your wife or your kids, people who know you, are saying you're losing it, well, you know what? You probably are. And it's time you pay attention to it. Now, do you have to go to see a psychiatrist and get a diagnosis of PTSD? No. A lot of times, just beginning to reach out is what's going to help you. And the thing that I want to keep going back to here is that we had talked a lot about down-regulating the system because we get overexcited, then we can't sleep, we can't think, we can't focus. Well, we know there's lots of ways that bring that down. And one of the things that I think is really important is that we're able to recognize that when we're alone, we're at our biggest risk, because now we're just operating within our own system. When we connect outside of ourselves, and that can be in many ways, whether that's petting your rabbit or walking your dog or looking into the eyes of another human being, things begin to shift, because suddenly we're not just working in our own internal system, we're working in a connected system. You know, we can talk a lot about the neurological regulation that happens in people, but it's important to recognize that the worst stuff that happens is when we're in isolation. I loved hearing about the gaslighting study. I loved hearing that what was going on with that, and that she was very clear about if you're in a corporate setting where they're gaslighting you, if you're in any kind of setting where they're not confirming what truth is, what reality is, and trying to force you to give up your reality for their reality, you know what? That can only happen if you are in isolation. If you have those around you who will confirm your reality, who acknowledge your reality with you, you are not going to be able to get forced to give up what you know is true. And that's what I want you to be able to remember, is that we connect all the time in many different ways. Now, my specialty is I work in energetic psychology. I work in the energy field. By that, what do we mean? The energy of chi, the energy of electromagnet. You know, the first energy medicine was when we started doing x-rays, because suddenly we're using electromagnetic energy in a way to be able to then create x-rays. And to this day, we still use all kinds of energy to be able to diagnose and to treat things that are going on in us. But a subtler form of this is just to recognize that our hearts are electromagnetic transmitters and receivers, and that we know, there's no question, that we put out a signal every time our heart beats. Every time someone else's heart beats, they put out a signal. And if we choose to pay attention to that connection that happens through that signal, it's a wonderful thing, because suddenly we're not alone. And whether that connection happens electromagnetically or through touch when you touch somebody else, or whether it happens at a quantum level, whether there's there's quantum entanglement going on. Now, we can talk about this in a lot of different ways, but what I know for sure is when I'm watching this conference and when I'm thinking about you people who are out there doing this work and having the courage and the strength, I feel a connection in myself. And that's a wonderful thing. Now, take a moment and ask yourself, how are you doing? And if you start with, I'm fine, be a little more specific. How are you doing in those parts of your life that are important for the quality of your life and the quality of the life of the people you love and care for? So now, there's lots of ways to, if you're not doing so well, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling afraid, to bring that down. You know, my particular approach to this is to use stimulating meridian treatment points in a specific order to eliminate that overwhelming feeling. It downregulates the system. And we can do that together here. I'm going to take you through it real quick. So you don't have to disclose anything, but I want you just for a moment to let yourself come into yourself. This is the meditation part of this, is to pay attention to what your experience in this moment is. Now, I know you brought a million other things that you've got to get done and that you were looking forward to getting done, but just take a couple of deep breaths and begin to notice, how do you feel right now? How are you doing with the stress of being in your world, doing what's important to you? And as you do that, just notice, how's your heart? How's your breathing? How's the tension in your back? And let yourself move into a space of noticing that. Now, I'm not going to ask you to rate the level of discomfort that you have, or it's usually 0 to 10 kind of thing. But I just want you to all tap with me here in a moment, because I want us to try to connect. I want us to try to notice that we are not alone in this moment. We are not alone in our focus and where we're going. And as you're thinking about that, we're going to want to eliminate any disruptions to that connection, because it's so powerful and important to being healthy. And now tap with me. Tap on the side of your hand. Tap under your nose. Tap the beginning of the eyebrow. Tap under the eye. Tap under the arm. Tap under the collarbone. Index finger under the collarbone. Tiny finger under the collarbone. And then the next part of that is you tap on the back of your hand. You close your eyes for a moment. You open your eyes. You look down into your left. Look down into your right. Whirl your eyes around. Whirl your eyes the other direction. Hum. Count 1, 2, 3. Hum again. And then we just repeat the tapping we did. And I hope some of you are doing some tapping. If you're not, just stay in that space of allowing the connections to happen around us. And notice what you're feeling, because that feeling, we hope, will allow you to calm down, to be in a relaxed state, and to be able to deepen that connection that you're feeling to the people around you who share your values, who share the work that you do. Now, if you want more information about the tapping stuff, you can go to the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology. There's lots of data on it, lots of information. And you actually have people in your group there. Ted is there, and Blinkwell, he will show you how to tap. He's been doing this a lot and knows how to do it. So let me see here. Try to get back to. All right. Now, I should have stopped the PowerPoint. Did it stop?
Yeah. Bob?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
With the website, energypsych.org for ASAP's website, you might want to mention resources for resilience.
Oh, yes. Thank you. If you go to that website, and you'll see several tabs, and one of them is for the public, and one is for humanitarian services. There's a couple of places in there that they will show you how to tap. I particularly like it because you can go to the tab that's on resources, and look at the research that we have there, because there's like 400 articles on tapping now, and it's very powerful. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. That's what I want to say to people, is your work is important, and you have to stay healthy in this fight. And to do that, you have to pay attention to what's going on with you and not just say, I'm fine. So with that, I'm going to stop and take a few questions, and then we'll get you on your way, if that's okay. So.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Bray.